All right, my friends, happy Monday to you. We're here with Scott Newnam he's the CEO of Audio Advice. As you guys know, they're a channel sponsor, but we're huge fans of your company, Scott. You guys do some amazing work. That show that you put on, the Audio Advice show, was mesmerizing. The fact that you guys pulled together a world-class trade show for home theater enthusiasts, your first year, and you guys just killed it, blew my mind and just made me realize what level of people we're dealing with when we're dealing with Audio Advice.
Well, I appreciate it. We had a blast, Gene. It was great walking around with you, looking at everything and talking about it, and then even having you on the, on the panel. That was just terrific. So.
Yeah, that was a great honor, and you had some really talented people on there, and I can't wait for the next one. And guys, when they announce the date for the next Audio Advice Live, we will be promoting it, and we'll have you back on, Scott. We'll have some of your guests on as well, and we'll just talk this thing up because I want everybody there. I want this to be even bigger next year because it was such a fun time. Bring your family, that kind of thing,
Yeah, it was really interesting. We had way more people fly in for the event and come, from way out of state than we ever anticipated. And we learned a lot. As you know, we went out and we've interviewed and done surveys from all the brands that came, as well as all the participants. And that hotel was completely sold out for that weekend. And anyways, we're going bigger and better. We'll very shortly be announcing the next date. And virtually every single brand came to us and said, I want a bigger room next year. I want to be able to show more stuff. So it's going to be really fun.
That's exciting. So one thing I wanted to have you on today, because you guys have done a lot of software work behind the scenes on your home theater design tool and now your projector calculator. Guys, these are invaluable tools to help you design a home theater to get the best out of your listening space before you go and drop tons of money on equipment. It's really important to have a plan on what you're going to lay out, where you're going to put the speakers, how many speakers you want to get for proper immersion, the kind of projector you need, the throw distance, the screen material. You guys got this down to a science, and it's all graphical. And I don't know of anybody else that's offering a free design tool that is so comprehensive like this. It could be intimidating for someone that's never done this before. So I really would love for you to kind of give us a guide on how to use this tool. Show us an overview of both tools, and then people can be better educated and understand what they're doing in their own space.
Yeah. So I'll, I have to say one of the things that I'm most proud about in both the tools, the home theater design tool, as well as the projector calculator, is we try to make them simple. And as you know, it takes a lot more work to make something super simple than to make it complex. And so, my background is in software. And so why don't we do this? Let me start with the projector throw distance calculator. Yep. I assume you can see my screen?
You can, yes.
Okay. So this tool we recently released, and this tool is specifically designed for people that, let's say you've already designed your theater, you've already got a theater, maybe you're replacing your projector, putting in a new one, or honestly, a lot of people that came out of the gate starting to use this over the past month, there's been a lot of people that actually run home theater installation companies. And they were constantly, designing the system. They knew where the speakers were going to go and everything else, but they need to know for any given projector, where should I put that projector? And so what we've done, we've mimicked the exact same look and feel as the home theater tool. And I'll just sort of start with this one. What you do is you go into the tool, you choose the projector brand that you want, and you'll see you can use a generic one, or we're going to choose Sony here. And let's say we choose the Sony 7000 ES. It will first bring up all the specs. And Gene, as you and I were talking before the stream got going, one of the things that we thought was super important to provide to people was actually bring these projectors into our lab and test them, because you can read all the specs you want, but people use different specs in different ways, many different manufacturers. And so in each case, we brought the projectors in and we tested the fan noise level. We tested vertical and horizontal offset, what the throw distances are. And then the other thing that happens is as you back a projector up, you'll see in this case, I've got the 7000 sitting up there. I've got my ceiling height set. You could move this 9 feet, 10 feet, however much you want. As you back the projector up, it actually loses brightness on the screen. And it's different depending on what the projector is and what the lens is. And so because we've measured them, someone can come in here and literally in a few minutes, they'll set how high they want the screen to be from the floor. Maybe it's 36 inches off the floor. Maybe you want a widescreen, so you switch to 2.4. Let's say you decide I want this to be 120-inch screen. So it literally will change in real time.
Yeah.
And it's going to show you, and you'll see, actually, this is really interesting. It shows you a 32 inches here. And the reason is it knows you've got a 4-inch frame there, and you can even change the frame size. But it's showing you real time how far it is from the ceiling and how far forward and back you can go. And for anyone who has sent installers out somewhere trying to figure out, oh, there's a fan here or there's a floor joist or something I have to avoid, this solves it all. It also makes adjustments for anamorphic lenses. There's a pop-up next to everything that explains it if you've got questions.
Oh, yeah.
And then, as you mentioned in the opening, we've also put in screen gain. So, the most popular is 1.3 in most rooms. So you could set it to whatever you want. And then you have vertical and horizontal offset. So most people don't use these. Most of the time, if you can, you're putting the projector right at the top of the screen in the center. But there are cases where you've got maybe like a diagonal ceiling or a vaulted situation, or maybe a fan in the way, that you'll in fact use. You'll see you can use vertical offset to move it up and down and reset it back to 0. Same with horizontal. And then what it does is it tells you your entire throw distance. You'll see as I pull the slider, it'll move it forward and backwards on that green line. And it'll show you the brightness of nits. And Gene, you'll see as I move farther away, those nits drop. And you might find that they drop lower than you want for a particular projector, and then you'll change to a different projector. And it's literally that's up. Then you click.
It's interesting to keep things into perspective. When you look at the nits that you're showing versus a nits of a fixed panel display, it's like a fifth of what you get with a fixed panel display, right?
That's correct. So a television panel will have way, way higher nits.
900 or more.
Yeah. And, a lot of these, as you know, HDR content are set up assuming maybe you've got 1,000 or whatever else. But you can get full HDR capability. Actually, I'll show you an example. If I went, let me choose a projector that is not, as bright. So let's say I go down to, let's say the 715 projector. And if I increased, this just show, literally you can do it in just a couple minutes, but let me increase the image size quite a bit. And as I take the image size up and let me drop my screen gain down, let's say at a 0.8. What you'll see is my nits now show me it's in yellow. So it will tell you that it's basically not HDR compatible at that point, because I've got too big a screen, not enough gain for the brightness of that projector.
Yeah. Now, what happens if I'm like, let's say I want an Epson projector? Because last time I checked, there was only like one projector from Epson in there. Is this a database that you guys are constantly updating?
We are. I'll show you what we've got in there now. Let's see. Yeah, so we've got the new LS 12,000.
You put
they showed in
CD.
Too, yeah. So we've got all the ones that are out there right now that installers would be using. But yeah, you can see here. As I move it, this would be a perfect example, by the way, Gene, that someone would know if they want to put it in the back of the room, this projector is not going to be enough for that size screen. If they can put it all the way up here and that fan noise is not a problem for that seat, then they'll be okay.
Right. I mean, that's just amazing, because now you can pre-select what projector you're going to put in with no guesswork anymore.
Yeah. So, and you see how fast we did that. And most of the work is in making this super simple. And we've got a lot of people from Europe and around the rest of the world that use it. So you can use centimeters and meters, but it's totally free. It's, you'll see here, it's at audiodevice.com, projector, throw distance calculator. There's a lot of installers using it. And people ask us sometimes, do you mind if we use the calculator? And we tell people, just go use it. We've sort of provided to the industry, go have fun with it. The other part that we've done in this is we've now taken all of this capability and put it into the home theater design tool. So if you were designing everything from scratch, or you were remodeling your theater, instead of using this, you would do it in the home theater design tool, which you and I have talked about, spent some time on before. And maybe it's worthwhile just to walk through this a little bit, but maybe focus on those new capabilities.
Yeah, absolutely. Because you guys have made a lot of updates since the last time we've spoken about this.
Yeah, it has gotten really, really good. I mean, AudioDevice itself, we install a lot of theaters. We install quite a few every single week. And we needed this for ourselves to speed up the process and be more precise. And when we go cut a hole, we want to make sure it's in the right spot. So, the things we've added since you and I last talked about it. And again, this is also free. It's just, if you go to Audio Device and click on home theater, it'll be the main page that you see there. You can go to metrics. We had all depth and width and height. They've always been in there. Seating now gives you full capability to set your riser height. What's interesting about that, if I click on this sightline button now, we're now showing you the sightline from your rear seats. And you'll see when you look at the height of the screen, we're basically calculating what it takes to get over most people's heads right there. But if I change the seating riser height, watch what happens to the screen, right? As I drop that riser height, the screen has to go up to enable
it compensates.
Yeah. And it does the same thing now for riser depth. And so you can really play with these, because a lot of times people will come to us and say, I've only got a room this deep, and they're trying to fit 2 rows in, and they don't know if they can do it, but they want the biggest screen possible. And there's just a bunch of calculations to figure out, right? If I change my depth and I start doing this, all of a sudden I can have a bigger screen because I can see over it. But the problem with that is I don't have as much of a walkway now, right? When these are reclined. And so ideally people want the longest riser depth they can, but not so much that they can't get a bigger screen. So
let me ask you a question. I don't want to complicate things, but in my view, when you have that gap behind the riser, and most home theaters are not big rooms, right? So you're wasting space back there. What if you put that riser all the way to the back wall and push the seats forward? Are you able to make that adjustment in the tool? Or does it automatically assume that those seats are going to be at the back of the riser at a certain distance from the wall?
Well, actually, great question. The mathematics are done on where the chairs are. So if you look here, you choose which row is your primary. And so what happens is you can move the seats like this, and the actual riser would in fact go all the way back to the back. And but the visual is just showing it there. But you're correct. In the math that we give you, it tells you where the front of the riser is and tells you can go all the way to the back wall. It's a great point. Yeah. But for purposes of, let's say someone's watching the stream, they're like, oh, I want to go play this right now. I'm thinking about, adjusting my room or doing a new room. The way to do it is put your seats where you want them. And it's going to show you the exact feet and inches to have the seats in the right location.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And then obviously you can choose aisle position, left, right, or both. And you can set the width of your aisle. And then video setup. So this is where we really advanced it. When we were building the projector calculator to determine throw distance, we also added all of that capability in here. So let's say I go in here, I choose a JVC, and let's say I did a JVC NZ9. Now I've got the capability, and you'll see it threw that in here. So I've got my throw distance shown right here in real time. Let's go back. I like my widescreen. So we're going to go to widescreen. Let's increase the screen a bit. And you'll see as the screen's increasing, it's pretty cool. You can see the projector work its way back in the room.
Yeah.
In the throw distance. This is going to show you immersion level. This has actually been really helpful. A lot of times people will call us and say, how do I know if it's too big? And we show viewing angle here, but in general, and I'll show you as I take this high, we've set viewing angles to be the average of when it says average here, that means you're in the middle row of an average theater in the United States. When it switches, you'll see it goes up to higher. Now you're in the front third. And increasingly, by the way, we have more people going to higher immersion level, and it also can go all the way up to an extreme immersion level.
Now, is this based on any SMPTE or THX standard for immersion, or you're saying it's based on, like, what are you basing the?
Yeah, so we started with THX and set the angles at THX. We sent them what we found, to be honest, is that the THX suggested ranges are not immersive enough for people today. And so we do enough now that we're able to survey our own customers and go back, and we've come back and gone, oh my gosh, it used to be, it's just like when you put your first 55-inch television in your living room, you're like, oh my gosh, that's too big. And then all of a sudden you're like, I need a 65. And by now you're like, my gosh, that's too small. I need a 75. That's what's happening in the entire home theater space right now.
Oh, for sure. I mean, I think everybody's redefined their expectations now that fixed panel displays are so cheap. I mean, it's easy to put a 65 in a bedroom now.
That's right. That's right. And we're seeing people take home theater screens up. And obviously you've got the benefit of being able to say, well, some people sit on the back row that want to be so close. Some people sit on the front row, which by the way, you can do in here by just switching which row is the primary, and it will show the angle to each row. But increasingly, so this reflects an adjustment from THX to what we have found across our entire customer base, which is a big, it's in the thousands of data points of theaters. And you can set your screen border width right now. We added that. So a lot of people are going to these like 1-inch screen border widths. You can do something really, really tight. You've got to be very precise on your projector as you get really low screen border width so you don't have, overscan.
Oh, yeah.
So then you'll set your screen gain here, and we have all those same capabilities that were in that tool. And you'll actually see something interesting here. Let me shrink it one little button here. You can take this projector and hide it. In fact, I'm releasing a video of a really cool theater we did with a GTZ 380. We're going to release it this coming Saturday. And we hid the GTZ 380 right there, back behind the room. And the only thing that's poking through is the lens.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
That cuts down on noise. The aesthetics is so much nicer.
Yeah, everything's better. And so you'll see here, it turns it orange just to let you know that it gone outside the room, but it will allow you to do that for exactly that reason.
So in an install like that, you have to go with a more powerful projector because like you said, we're out of the throw distance that's optimal to get the best HDR for most projectors. So you have to go with something that has more light output, right? And a higher screen gain. Yeah,
that's right. So you could, this would be if someone were playing with it and saying, well, 105, even though it's HDR compatible, it's not bright enough for what I want. And they could jump in here and say, okay, well, what if I went up to a 1.3 screen gain? Okay, now I start, okay, maybe this works with this projector. And in this case, actually, this is compared to most theaters, this is pretty high nits. You'll see.
So does this assume now that you have a light controlled room, it's fully dark in the room, obviously, right?
Yeah, so you're measuring the nits running a full white screen with a light meter on front of it with it spread at that size, which by the way is exactly what we tested. When we bring these into the lab, what we have to do is we use a very advanced light meter, and it essentially sits right at the screen, and then you have to move the projector forward and backwards and see as it zooms in and out what the light loss is, and you'd be shocked how it varies by brand and by projector. But no one has to worry about that now because we've already put the data in for them.
I guess one other question I have for you, and this relates to the home theater design as well as the projector calculator. If someone's trying to hit a certain noise floor in a room and they want to have like a THX quiet room, do you guys have that built into what you need to do with the projector, where it needs to go? Do you compensate for that? Like a hush box? Do you have any design options for people, suggestions or anything like that?
So the tool itself does not tell you what the noise floor would be, because as you might imagine, the biggest thing that impacts your noise floor is your HVAC system turns on,
yeah,
right?
For sure,
or things like that. However, what we do when you click here and click save and view specs, and I'll show you that in a second, it will tell you the suggested range of acoustic treatment in the room. And you've had Anthony on a number of times. Our range is very similar to what you would get, sort of the methodologies he's using. And we do, for that reason, show you, and actually this would be a really good example here. In this room, let's say if I pull these chairs back a little bit, let's pull this forward. You would not want, let me shrink the screen just a tiny bit here. And I'm just going to do this because I'm going to bring it forward.
Yeah, the reason why I say this is if you put a projector like right above the front row, and that could kill your noise floor real quickly in the room. I mean, it could not as loud as as HVAC for sure, but something that people have to consider if it's a choice between, if you're really serious about audio and you want to have a low noise floor, then maybe you need to go with a better projector and you want to put it towards the back of the room to compensate for the noise output, get something with more light. I think that's something that you don't realize it until it's too late. And it's something worth noting.
100%. So your basic, your options are, we show you what we calculated as the fan noise at 3 feet and 6 feet. So those are the calculations we did. So based on your room, you can pull it up and go, wait a second, maybe I've got a 12-foot ceiling It's going to be
Yeah.
6 feet over me. I'm okay. And so I can bring it farther forward. But Gene, you're exactly right. If you said, no, I either have to move this to the back of the room, I have to put it in a hush box, or I've got to go to a different projector, or a combination of. Yeah. So let's move into the audio setup, because this is where we did some really cool stuff.
Sure.
Let's say we did in-wall speakers. So you'll click the box in walls and you'll see it adjusted there. It asks you if you want acoustically transparent. Let's throw them behind the screen and make them transparent. And then it asks you for your main surrounds. Do you want them in wall? Let's go ahead and put those in wall. We now have added front wides, and I won't spend too much time over. There's a lot of debate about front wides as to exactly where they should go. And there's really two different ways to calculate it. You can calculate by looking at the angle between the side speaker and the front speaker. So basically you take let's say your main listening is here, and you analyze what is the angle from here to there. And then you can bisect that angle, and then keep going, all the way until you hit the wall. Or you can take a tape measure and measure from your side speaker to the front speaker and find the midpoint and go out to the wall. And those are actually, strangely enough, two different positions. And we are essentially using an algorithm that comes between those two based on our experience of trying to get the best position for front wides.
Yeah.
But
the other thing that's important too is whether or not you're putting them flush mount like you're showing, or you can do an angled speaker. I've seen some companies now offering a speaker that you could put on the wall with a 20 or 30 degree angled baffle.
100%. So, if you use, for instance, JBL Synthesis, they have two speakers are very similar. One is the SCL6 and one is SCL7. The SCL7 is the angled version. It's a little bit different, but for the most part, the main point is it's perfectly designed for that kind of situation. Yeah. So let's say we throw we're going to throw in some rear surrounds. You see those showing up. The other thing, by the way, it does the calculations on, where the tweeter should go. And so it's figuring out the tweeter position. We do follow more. We have our own methodology of doing it, but for the most part, most of the major players, Harman, Trenov, ourselves, all tend to push the tweeter slightly higher than ear level. And we tend to push the sides a little bit farther forward, because if you look at Dolby Spec, Dolby doesn't show, home theater seats with backs. They show an open seat with one position. And when you do this in reality, you need to make sure that this tweeter, if someone's sitting in all three seats, the person in the center seat can actually hear that tweeter.
Absolutely. And people, a lot of these home theater chairs are really wide backs, and they just kill the surround field, That's why I always put my sides and surrounds about 2 to 3 feet above seated ear level. And it's interesting you said the same thing about putting the side channel slightly forward of your MLP, because I've always done that. It's just always felt like it sounded better, and I didn't realize it's because of that back of the seat that could be causing some of the blockage.
100%. Yeah. It's funny you've been doing that, because most of the major, professional theater designers have all moved to this position, because it's much more practical. It works. And then, in actual tests in rooms that have been delivered, everyone finds these to be much better. So with you can choose your number of subs. We're not trying to tell you where to place subs. We've got videos, and you've got videos, and other people telling people how to deal with this. And we tell people you really need to go watch those videos. This is not designed to do that. But this is honestly, this last piece of this whole tool is my favorite. And I personally spent a lot of time on it. And here's the concept. Let me throw up 4 Atmos channels here. So right now, this room, I'm going to turn off the sight line. This room is a pretty reasonably well-designed room that's got, 4 Atmos with a main listening position right here on the second row. We've got these slightly up. The rears are behind it. We figured out where everything should go in the front. So it's a pretty good room. This is designed, and I'm going to steal your language here, for the person that says, I want my seat as great as possible. And if mother-in-law wants to sit over here, that's fine. But the front Atmos are going to be behind her, and she's not going to get as good a sound.
Yeah.
However, a lot of times what we do is we have people come in and they say, well, it's not that simple. Like, I'm going to be there a lot of times with my wife, or maybe the kids will be there. And what I want is, some people say, like, I I want to be all the way where every seat sounds as good as possible, even if mine won't sound as good. And then some people say, no, I want all the seats to sound as good as possible, but I still want mine to be in spec. And so that's what this slider allows someone to do. So if you watch, I'm going to slide it and watch these Atmos speakers and sides, because you can see it most easily from that. As I begin to slide from the primary, you'll see the Atmos speakers are starting to spread out. The fronts are moving forward and they're moving wider. And I'm going to move them all the way to here. So what you see when they get there, actually, I'll move them all the way across right there. If I move them to full AI optimized, notice that the fronts are now always in front of the front seats. The rears are always behind the rear seats. The rights are always to the right of the right seats, the left to the left of the left seats. Now look at what's done with the sides. It's basically split the difference between these two seats to optimize between these two.
Yep.
For most people, what they will say, at least those that call us and talk and we're working with them on the phone or they're coming into one of our stores, they say, I want to make every seat as good as possible and still be in spec. And so what they would do, these have turned orange because these are now too far forward for this main listening position. They're out of Dolby spec. So if you bring it back 1, 2, 3 steps, that position is the optimal position for someone who says, give me the best sound across all 6 of those seats, but I want my seat to be 100% in spec. So it's a very simple interface with a slider. The math behind that is greater than everything else above it combined.
Does it highlight the MLP? Is there a way to highlight, like, I lost the part where you selected where the MLP is.
All right. So yeah, I did it really quickly. When we are up in choosing the seating, it asked us, which is your primary row?
Oh, okay. You put back. Okay.
And by the way, so if I went up here and I said, let's do 3 rows of seats, let's just do that. If I switch it to 3 rows.
Can't fit it. Oh, there you go.
Yeah,
you don't want to sit in that front row.
Yeah, someone's gonna be sitting really close. Actually, just for the fun of it, let's make the depth of this room and let's pull these guys back just a little bit. And you'll see we can get right there. This is actually really fascinating because we use orange to show you anything out of spec. Someone who doesn't know anything can very rapidly go, those are too far back, too far forward, and watch the rear speakers. All of a sudden, right there. We used to design all these things 100% by hand, and we still will take these and do a lot of calculations afterwards for people that call and talk to our guys on the phones. But that is freaking crazy amazing what that just did to design a 9-seat, full 7 dot, where we got two bass channels and 4 Atmos in here. But it's pretty fast what a consumer can do just playing with it.
So is the max amount of speakers we could put in this setup maybe a 9.4.6, or can you put 2 pairs of side channels?
No, you're exactly right. It's 9.4.6. Yep.
Okay.
So it would do 6 Atmos. What happens is for someone that goes to that higher level where they start doing more side channels, they will design the room like this and then just call us up. And we'll just talk to them and we'll start working through design plans. And we'll do it all by hand. And I think you've probably seen some of ours. We'll even go to a full 3D rendering of the room and that kind of thing on what it will look like afterwards.
Yeah, and the other thing too is if you have, especially in places like Florida, you have irregular shaped rooms, may not be a full rectangle, ideally like this. So at that point, that's when someone can go and do a consultation with you guys, right?
That's right. That's right. Actually, I'm thinking about your comment at the beginning. I think that's a good one. I think we'll add into our software to go ahead and show this all the way back. This riser, just it's a visual thing. But so imagine we did this and a consumer's just on there playing for free. And what happens is they take what would be a 20 hours of round and round Facebook, YouTube, all these kinds of things, and you can condense it into sitting, in front of a computer, playing around, having fun with it. And then you click save and view specs. By the way, if you click rulers here, when we are designing with people, we'll typically, if we're doing team viewer, sharing a screen, we'll look at this because people will know pretty quickly, how far can I go to the front of my front seats? How far can I go to the front riser? All these kinds of things. And then obviously we're showing you can see sound dispersion, those kinds of things. But when you save it, you end up getting this spec sheet. And this spec sheet will tell you literally all the major things you need to know: how many rows you've got, what the primary seat is, seats per row, how big your aisles are, your riser height and depth. And then it tells you these are the biggest things technicians and do-it-yourselfers need to understand, is exactly where is the beginning of my front seat going to go, because I have to know where to put my electrical outlet. And then where's my second row going to be? And then how far to my front riser? And then you can see it shows you screen diagonal aspect ratio. And then we're going to tell you, given the size of your frame, exactly off the floor, where's that position. And it's, been adjusted so that you don't mess up sight lines.
Mm-hmm.
And then we walk you through projector placement. And then, as I mentioned, we show you the distance from the ceiling to the projector, and then what your pole length will be on a standard mounting kit. So you know what to, so there's a lot of sort of savings. And then over here, all your speakers, where everything will go. And then you and I talked about it a few minutes ago, but we give you this acoustic paneling range here. And then if someone wants to contact us, we'll work through, what exactly you need in terms of diffusion versus absorptive panels, et cetera.
So I'm always thinking ahead, and I'm thinking like when you have an awesome tool like this and you have a printout of where everything needs to go, it would be cool if you could also put a budget and then you guys can give product suggestions for each product for the speaker.
So I'm glad you said that is in the product pipeline for this. In theory, what you could do, because you've made two comments that both get to the same sort of concept. One is, what if you could choose the speakers? And maybe you and I were talking about this before the stream started, but what if you could choose the speakers and know what your SPL level could be?
Mm-hmm.
And that would also at the same time allow us to show budget. Yeah.
Awesome. I mean, it's amazing to me that all of these tools are here available for free for consumption for a consumer, and they're easy to use. Flip the clock 5 or 10 years ago, we didn't have stuff like this. We had to go to a integrator and definitely pay a fee for that. And it just wasn't as accessible as it is now. So you guys could plan well in advance before drywall goes up, and to know where to put the speakers is invaluable, because once you decide where to put the speakers in the walls and the drywall goes up, you can't move it very easily. So to have this tool here available saves you guys a lot on avoiding retrofitting afterwards.
Yeah. And, I think you've met probably Nick and Seth, some of our theater designers, that you'd be surprised the level of theaters that we're doing. Everything from a very basic, $8,000, theater that someone thought they couldn't do for $8,000 up to, we've done, sort of multi-$100,000 ones where we've literally team viewed with people, looked at all this, done the drawings, done the 3D die. In fact, we did all that same stuff for the rooms that were done at Audiovice Live with the brands. And, and then, there's also plenty of people that use this, both of these tools now, that are home theater installers, and we don't have anything to do with it. In other words, they use the tool, they print it out, they work with a customer, it saves them a lot of time. And you know what? That's great, because better theaters are being produced, and we're not selling anything from that, and that's okay. So
there's a question here. I like this question. Is it bad when the AA tool says immersion level extreme? Come on, this is Audioholics. Everything we do is extreme.
Actually, it's funny. We put that in there, and you'd be surprised. So when you go, someone's probably playing with it right now in their own system, and right here where you see the immersion level, let me take this up. Let's see if we'll take it up. There, extreme. The answer is no. The answer is more. This would have been considered like total heresy 5 years ago. People would have said it's too big. It is not too big anymore. And in fact, there's a reasonable number of ones we're doing that are extreme. And I'm not extreme yet in my own theater. I'm in the higher level. But when I update my theater, I'm going to figure out how to go to extreme.
I'll tell you this much. When I was doing my own theater and I was working with Don from Haven Smart, and I was going to put a 120-inch screen, he goes, dude, you got to put 150. I'm like, that's crazy. Like, I'm 15 feet away from the screen. I'm going to get motion sickness. My wife's not going to like it. He fought tooth and nail with me, and I finally gave in. I said, okay, let's do the 150, because it gets me more space to put my speakers apart, and there's just a lot of advantages. I got used to it very quickly, and now I would regret if I didn't go to 150. I think it's the perfect level of immersion. And the only thing I warn people on is if someone's playing video games and you're not involved in the action, it could cause some motion sickness. So you might want to sit in the back row or just not look when we're playing video games. But it's just interesting how your perspective changes when you're involved in the action versus watching the action.
Yeah, that's right. There's a new theater here in North Carolina near where I live, and it is the most immersive Atmos into about professional, theater. It's the largest one in North Carolina. And so as soon as it opened, as you might imagine, I had to go, right? So I told my wife, we got to go. We got to be the first people in the theater. And everyone had been writing about it and saying the immersion level is going to be off the charts, video and audio. That theater, and I was sitting close to the middle. I mean, I was a little bit forward, but close to the middle. We were in full what we would call extreme immersion, and it was an incredible experience. So.
Yeah. Well, I think, Scott, it's amazing the work you guys have done. I think the next level would be, like we were talking about, an SPL calculator, having some type of standard for all these speakers to be measured to, whether it's IEC or whatever, or THX. And then people can know they have an extreme immersion for video, and then they have the same thing for audio as well if they want to hit THX reference levels. That's where we're heading. I know the CEDIA design tool has something like that, but that's not accessible to consumers. But if you guys are the first to break that for consumers, at least to give them some good guides, like we do with the Bassaholic room size ratings for subwoofers, to have that kind of complement into this tool would just be an awesome win for anyone that's designing their own home theater.
Yeah, it's a great idea. Yep.
Well, I appreciate all the knowledge you dropped here, Scott. Guys, make sure you check out the Audio Advice designer tool and the projector calculator. I'll put the links in the video description below. It's audioadvice.com. We're going to have Scott and others on from Audio Advice in the coming months to do other topics on home theater. I love talking to you guys all the time. You guys do so many installs. You have so much knowledge on really doing professional integration that's helping the end user here. And of course, we're excited for the next Audio Advice live event. I can't wait for that to happen again in North Carolina. And again, Scott, I appreciate you being here today.
You bet. Thanks, Gene. Appreciate it. As always, lots of fun.
Yeah, for sure. Guys, don't forget about our Patreon channel at patreon.com/audiohawks. We appreciate your support. You get direct access to us if you want to suggest video topics or ask questions. And until next time, my friends, keep listening.